Hi everyone, my name is Indrik. I am the co-founder at AlphaBoost. Welcome to our webinar. I think it's already the 6th episode in our webinar series. And what we're talking about today is internal IT virtual assistants. I'm glad to have you here, and let's get started. What I will do is the build-up of the webinar is as usual. What I will do is I will first talk a few words about the company, and then I'll dive into the topic. This will take around 20 minutes, and after that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. So you can ask them in the dashboard inside the webinar software. So let's get started. Internal IT virtual assistants. So if you are new to our webinars, then all the previous webinars are accessible on our YouTube channel. If you just search for alphaboost.ai, you can see all the webinars there. You can watch them at full length, and you can also subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss out any future webinars. A few words about us as a company to set some background into the topic today. We've been around for a few years, and the company is specifically focused on messaging automation and analytics. We specifically focus on creating virtual assistants or chatbots, and also live chat products. So anything you want to do in chat automation, we'll do. Currently, we have our AI does around 250,000 conversations each month with users. So we are well aware of how automation happens at scale, and for that reason, we cater for mostly enterprise customers. The product we have is an end-to-end chat automation product with the customizable chat window. It also has the conversational interface builder where you can build the bot. Also the AI engine to train it in all European languages. And you have the smart routing to agents. So if you have human agents as well, then they can use our live chat product, and you have analytics and everything available to it. So I'll be speaking from this sort of point of view of the product and the experience we have gained. And we've been featured in press in CNN when we created the Corona bot earlier this year as a strength to our product. So let's dive in, and I'll talk about virtual assistants. I mean, we can call it conversational AI, or we can call it chatbots. I use these as synonyms. So first, let's take a bit of a look at like external versus internal virtual assistants, and what's the difference, right? So today we're focused on internal, but let's first set the stage. So most chatbots today, they are external. I think this is mainly because a lot of companies have understood the power of chat automation, and especially if they have hundreds of thousands or millions of customers, then they create chatbots for their customers, and these fulfill all kinds of roles. So you can have it for customer support. It can be used for searching for products. You can do off-hours Q&A with the bot when your live agents are offline. But it's used in a context mostly, and it enables to deal with a lot of questions that customers have about your company, and it reflects your brand and your company identity. But it's catered towards outside, and it's in channels on your website, in your mobile app, in WhatsApp, in Facebook Messenger. Internal virtual assistants are focused on your employees, and so this is the biggest difference. So external is for customers, internal is for employees. And this has a variety of functions that the internal chatbot can have. So, one is technical help. Technical help about actually pretty specific tasks like, password resets or access to databases or product license renewals. So, IT tools that your employees use all the time and then get stuck with. Of course, things like human resources, like let's say, you need to schedule performance reviews with people, have them set up, meetings in their calendars, or people just have questions about the office and company and the policies. Because once you reach a certain scale with your company, then internal communication becomes something that you need to optimize for, and in that case, the VAs can be pretty helpful. So the idea is about communicating information to your staff. And what this allows is it's a bit of a, I would say, maybe somewhat easier thing to launch for companies, because you don't have sort of the brand pressure on the bots that sometimes the bots have when it's directly towards customers. So when you have a bot that's directly towards customers, then it has to have a nice avatar, a branding, a name, maybe a story behind it. You really want to test that it's accurate and that it works. When you launch it for your staff, it's maybe those things that you're not so worried about, because it's being used by your employees, and sort of the branding aspect is less important. So this is some of the differences between the external and the internal virtual assistants. Now the second point is, how can a company benefit from this, or what is the benefit? And one of the things when you talk about, I think, in internal IT is that you have set in place most likely the systems for how people can get help. Either they submit tickets, or there's a certain email and sort of procedure. But of course, and what happens, and this is also reflected how actually external customers work, is that employees find the shortest path to the solution. So even though you have all these things in place and well thought through, if employees have a problem, they just want to get the answer really quickly, and they go about finding quote unquote creative ways of finding a solution to the problem. So one of the things is that you should ask yourself is where is your support communication currently happening, and where should it happen? So let's say it should happen in a Jira service desk, but what's happening is that you use Slack, or some of your teams use Slack, and then people ask in Slack channels questions, then one of your support agents answers, and then that customer or that employee always now has a direct channel to the support member, like 24/7. And next time they have an issue, they just ask that. Well, it's great for the employee because they found the shortest path to the solution. And if I get an answer from there, then they know that, hey, just talk to John in Slack and he will fix everything you have. That is okay, but if you have 10,000 employees or more, or even hundreds of them more, then it becomes really hard to be John, because you can have, like, you open up Slack in the morning and you have like 50 direct messages, and solving all of these would take a few days time. So it's not really scalable. And I think one of the issues with this sort of communication, where it is happening, versus where it should happen, is that your internal IT team is most likely worn out because employees are not following procedure. And the second thing is that there's no audit trail. So you don't have the way in which to go back and find who got access to what information when, because it's all hidden all over the place. So a couple of ways how virtual assistants can be used. So if you say that this is like an intranet, think of this as an intranet website, then one way to have this is just a chat window on a help desk website. So people come in and they ask things like, my emails are not working, so what's going on? And sort of, I think, internal IT process, the common question is like turn it on and off, like, whatever you have problems with printers or computers. And most likely many of the questions that people have are pretty common. So either there is a certain system that you're using, like an email service, or like kind of a software program that people have trouble with logging into, or let's say your internal system where they need to have access to and they don't. And there's usually maybe a few simple things that they can do to figure this thing out. So this is a great way to just set up a few topics for the chatbot to know, and then just provide information right there, like go to settings, security, and renew token, and you should be fine, or provide a screenshot, or provide a video, whatever it is. Go through those 3-4 things, and maybe that resolves 80% of the problems that users might have, and then the rest, you can escalate to a ticket, for example, right? So the key in all of those virtual assistants for internal IT is that you want to find the few topics that have the most that get asked the most, and that can be solved relatively easily, right? If there's something that only a human can solve, then of course you would rather say, if your email is not working, then why don't you just submit a ticket and we'll take care of that then. Or another way is that if you have a large service team, is you can have dedicated internal IT support agents live as well. So step in, I come in, I ask a question from the bot. Step 2, the bot gives me an answer, but then I say it is not helpful, I want to talk to an agent. And then we can transfer the conversation to the human agent in the live chat system, who takes over, and then that agent specifically deals with internal IT support. So that really depends on the size of the company, but it's also a way to think about how is your process set up, so that you can solve the customer service, the employees' questions. So that's sort of one of the ways to think about if you use an intranet. I know another thing is that whatever messaging channel you're using that has a send receive API, you can connect to. So Slack or Teams or WhatsApp or Messenger. I mean, you have to think in terms of where your employees currently are, what channel you're using, and then if you have some difficulties in the channel, then you can create a chatbot in Slack that then does support, and in the case it cannot help, then maybe on its own submits a ticket to Jira, for example, right? So the user does not have to do it, because the user wants to do least amount of work to get that answer. So if you tell them submit a ticket, then they'll be like, nah, I'm just going to talk to John in Slack instead of this bot, and I don't really want to make a ticket in Jira. So you have to really think of the human nature that's in play, and also the way that you have set up the process. The same, you can set it up in Teams, or I don't know if you're using WhatsApp or Messenger for that. So pick the channel that your processes support. And also what's possible with the bots is not just simple FAQ type of answers, but what you can also do is you can have a bot that, let's say people want to renew licenses, or you have a large company like 5,000 employees, and their PowerPoint or Word license or something else expires. So most advanced bot solutions, and this direction that we have as well, is that you have an API that you can actually use to program certain actions to allow that type of advanced features. So if a person comes in and says, hey, my product X license expired, then instead of submitting a ticket to Jira, you can create a workflow that goes into your database, looks up the person email, and then renews the license and says it's done, right? Or if it wants to have a permission from let's say a manager, then sends the notification in Slack or in email to the manager. So the manager just has to click a button, say yes, that person can have access to this program, and then the access is granted to that person. So I think the big benefit definitely in internal bots is that all the users are authenticated, and with that you can do a lot more automated tasks. So you can bring in, you should think of this in a way that you should bring in the IT support only for things that you really cannot automate, or that happen so infrequently that it doesn't make sense to build automation in those those cases, but all kinds of license updates, getting access, password renewals, all those things. These it makes sense to automate with the bots. And so what's the benefit of using internal virtual assistants? And there's a couple. I mean, one obvious way to think about it is that what's the time reduced for staff to handling basic queries. So people that come in and ask questions, and then before it was like 100 tickets per day per one person. Now it's, I don't know, 20. Clearly we have 80% savings in time. But I think even more important is what's the time your employees are not productive because they are lacking access to some program or data, right? And if you have a team of internal IT support staff who work maybe 9 to 5, but you're running a global organization across multiple time zones, then questions come in 24/7. So if somebody submits a question on Friday and you say you answer, let's say, in 48 working hours, then the answer comes back maybe Tuesday, but that's already maybe 4 or 5 days later, and that employee maybe is stuck and waiting for access. So that's one of the things that it's not people are waiting. So there's a measurable time component there. And then the second part that builds upon the previous one is that then if you have people who are locked out of their accounts or cannot do things, then what's those delays, what's the impact on not winning deals or not launching products quickly enough, or it becomes sort of your competitive drawback, because maybe in some cases you need to react quickly, and sometimes when you're locked out, maybe employees don't get to perform as well as they wanted to. So if you have a company, you're using 100 different SaaS products, I mean it's a pretty nightmare to manage all the user rights and have people have access and everything like that. So those are the things that I think the internal virtual assistants definitely can help in making your workforce more productive. And of course, now in light of remote work, I think communication within the company is more important than ever, because maybe you used to have all hands meetings or just some water cooler conversations, or information was flowing within the office. Now, if people are maybe fully remote or semi-remote, then those type of natural interactions are definitely have decreased, but the need for information maybe even has increased. So you need to sort of be very crisp and clear about this and offer people a channel where they can reach out and get adequate information and support. So I think in those types of situations, considering having a virtual assistant definitely would make a lot of sense. So I would leave at that. And I think one of the closing thoughts I had when we made this presentation was that we see a lot of focus on external customer support, and definitely this is something that's growing. But I think really now, in light of people being remote and sort of the new way of how the working world works, I think in those types of ways, communication becomes increasingly important. And we see in many cases sort of that type of using a bot for certain topics or automation is something that companies could benefit from. So I'm happy to end here, and I can take questions that you might have. I think there's a questions pane that you can submit your questions to, and just ask away. Okay. So we have a question. What is the setup duration of an internal bot? Yeah, so that's a good question. What you have usually is if well, it's an answer that nobody wants to hear, but of course it depends, right? But if you have a relatively simple case that that maybe you want to deal with 15 to 20 topics that the bot should know, and it's something that the is sort of a very sort of clear-cut way. There's not a lot integration. Then from our part, setting it up is we can measure it in days or couple of hours to set up the bot and train it. If you have some custom authentication things, that takes a few days for sure to get going. So depending on how your users are authenticated, which channels you want to deploy the bot in, and of course that's just purely the building of the bot time. Now when you bring in the large organization with procedures, with project teams, with reporting, then I would say 1 to 2 months. I think if you are efficient, in 1 month you can have a bot that's up and running. And especially if you launch it internally, then you can have something that can be launched relatively easily, because sort of the cost of an error is maybe not that great as it would be with an external customer. So you can try out internally on some people and see the feedback and helpfulness, and then build from there. So we have a question. Can your bots use search on companies' internal documents if an employee asks something related to that? Oh, interesting. Yes, so it's possible. It sort of has a bit of a different functionality for the bot, but you can build bots that are essentially knowledge retrieval bots from your existing knowledge base. So what this means is that if let's say you have a company, a professional services company, or in finance or law or whatever it is, and you have people who have to work according to manuals or procedures that are well documented, then you can use the bot to crawl information from there and then bring that to the employees. So of course, let's say you have a procedure ABC that somebody needs to follow, and they don't know if it's ABC or ACD. So then they go in and they search for specific questions. Then the bot can crawl through Word documents and PDF documents and bring up some answers related to that. So yes, that is definitely possible. So we have a question. What is the cost estimation to these kinds of projects, and how much time and money these systems usually need? So the cost estimation, I would say it costs as much as a car, right? And then the next thing you're going to ask is like, what kind of car? I'm like, exactly. So you can, have a small Toyota Yaris, or you can have a Ferrari, and the cost is different. So it really depends what's the functionality and the scope, what you want. But I think it's on par with other software projects. So if you think of it as like a 1 month long, 2 month long deployment project, then you can have what's the general cost of launching such a thing within the company, because the way our business model is set up is that we have a monthly subscription fee. So setting up the service is sort of part of that, and then the rest is the monthly fee. So if you're something that's very standard, then it's no different than setting up another let's say a little bit customized enterprise software program, right? Not developing like some kind of a crazy 1,000 hours project for you specifically, but setting up another enterprise software program. So I think depending on the region where you're from, you can make the calculations of what the price would be for that. But good questions. And then if somebody has more, feel free to write them. I think one of the things that we get asked about and people have interest to is how do employees react to bots, or what's sort of the attitude towards talking with bots. In our experience, people really don't care. They only care about one thing: finding answer to their problems quickly. And I think this is what is driving them to find people in Slack who can help them and ask things. They're looking for speed and efficiency, and the ease of finding things, because every answer of course has a manual that's somewhere and they can find things, but they don't usually just don't bother because they have a million things going on. So if you manage to find a channel that provides high quality information for them quickly, then they will take that. So we have one more question. What about data protection? Do you give the virtual assistant completely to the customer? So this depends on the customer. I mean, hosting can be in the cloud. It can be in their cloud. It can be on premises. It really depends on the company's data protection policy, what they have. The solution that we have are GDPR compliant, so we have processes in place. And usually, what you want to have is you want to have that your employees get access to the data that they cannot find otherwise, and what you want to have also is information, maybe who accessed what data, who asked what. And this is for two reasons. One is for the audit purposes, so that when somebody has access to, let's say, like, I don't know, internal billing system, then there's a trail that shows the bot gave this because A, B, and C, and this procedure was followed, right? Because maybe it's sensitive data that shouldn't be available for any employee, so maybe the manager has to give approval or something. That's one thing. But the second thing is that you actually want to see what people are asking, what they want to know, what their issues are, and then you can figure out how can you make the solution better for them. Maybe you get feedback. HR can be very interested in what people are saying, how happy they are that they have to be in the office or they don't have to be in the office, or the work environment in general. Because another thing we found is that people are much more comfortable saying what they actually mean to a robot than to a human, because it sort of feels easier. There's no judgment. There's sort of no type of that type of thing coming from a robot. So you might get more truthful answers from communications with a robot than maybe with an actual person and your company employee. All right. So let's see if there are any other questions that you have. Feel free to write them now. And if not, then thank you for attending. You can reach us always, hello@alphaboost.com. We'll post this webinar also on our YouTube channel. Okay, so we'll take one last question. Would the solution work for a university? Yes, absolutely. So there's no difference in what sector you are from, whether it's public, private, or if it's a private sector, what type of specialty you're in. It's more about, I think it's more suitable to company size. So if it's a company with 50 employees, probably doesn't make sense. But if it's a company with few hundred, universities usually have thousands of people, then it definitely makes sense. So the more people you have, the more issues and challenges you have with communication. So I think it would work well for a university. So if you have any more questions, just reach out to us, and we'll have our next webinar in 2 weeks' time. So stay tuned, and hopefully I will see you there as well. Until then, take care. Bye.